Good evening, Bev. Well, this was an event to open a local office in the Sagaing region for the People's Defence Force, which is a resistance force that sprung up since the military coup 2 years ago to fight back against military rule. So around 150 people were at the opening of this local office when the airstrike happened. First, there was jets that dropped bombs. Secondly, a helicopter that was firing for around 20 minutes. Locals, now that they've had some time to really look at the carnage, say there are about 80 bodies that have been retrieved so far, but they expect that death toll to be up around 100. And if that is the case, Bev, that will make this the deadliest airstrike since the military seized power 2 years ago. And the junta says it was targeting what it's called a terrorist organisation. That is how it refers to the People's Defence Force. And it says that if any innocent people were targeted along the way, that is because they were being forced to help that terrorist organisation.
Have they used this kind of airstrike before?
Oh, many times, Bev. In fact, some analysis done by a conflict assessment group together with the BBC found that since the start of the military's campaign 2 years ago in Myanmar to seize power, there have been around 600 airstrikes. This is a tactic that the military is increasingly relying on too over the past 6 months to a year, because that ground offensive from groups like the People's Defence Force and other militia groups has really intensified. So military convoys are getting attacked on the ground. So they're now going up into the air because that's where they believe that they've got the strongest chance of trying to crush the dissent that is on the ground.
It's a very crude and brutal way to crush dissent. It does really indicate that this junta is not going to be taking a step back since they took power.
Absolutely. And recently, junta leader Min Aung Hlaing made it very clear that his military regime has no intention of stepping back. It wants to target the terrorists, as it calls them, any resistance groups that are trying to oppose it and attack its forces. And it says that it plans to hold elections later this year to restore, quote, democracy to Myanmar, even though it was the military junta who seized power from the democratically elected government of Aung San Suu Kyi. Her party, her National League for Democracy Party, had won some 83% of the vote in the election at the end of 2020, yet it is Min Aung Hlaing and his military junta that says it plans to hold fair and free elections to restore that democracy. International observers, people inside Myanmar, the diaspora community in Australia, all believe that election will be an absolute sham.
Yeah. Do these kind of attacks, though, slow down the resistance? If this was, an opening again for a group like this, it would suggest that they aren't going to give up either.
Look, that's the issue here with this ongoing civil war in Myanmar, is that neither side wants to give any ground, Bev. You've got the military pressing ahead and being bolstered by the likes of Russia and China to build their military might. Then you've got the resistance forces on the other side who, when these sort of attacks happened, say this only galvanises us, this only makes us more determined than ever to fight back. We've had some reaction today from the international community to this latest airstrike. Amnesty International says this airstrike highlights the urgent need to suspend all importation of aviation fuel. The UN has again called for an end to the violence. The US State Department says it will continue to work with the international community to hold the military government to account. And Australia issued a statement a few hours ago to say that it was concerned. It strongly condemned the military's actions and urged it to take steps to cease the violence immediately. But I've also been speaking to members of the Burmese diaspora community in Australia, here in Thailand too, and they all say that the time for statements has got to stop. We need to see concrete action, they say, to stop this military junta.
Yeah, and it is difficult because, to your point, when China is supporting them financially and just lining up on their side, it is very difficult even for the ASEAN nations to try and get through to this junta.
Absolutely. And the junta has made it very clear over and over again, Bev, that it's not interested in what outside forces, other countries, other organisations have to say, that it is dealing with a domestic issue, it says, and that international interference is not welcome. That said, it does go to international countries that support it, such as China and Russia. But this is a military junta determined to continue to crush dissent and rule this country up against people who are determined at the same time to have their voices heard and to restore democracy. This ongoing civil war, Bev, will only get more violent, people fear, as that sham election approaches. And they really do want the international community to do something to try to stop the junta and help restore democracy.
Yeah, let's see what they are able to do other than statements, as you point out. Thanks, Mazoe.
Thanks, Bev.